Welcome to PlotLines, where we'll use our over 30 years of experience in real estate communications to uncover the real stories behind real estate. I'm Heather Crowell.
And I'm Brittany Acriveau. Dive in with us as we invite guests to break down the ever-changing landscapes of real estate together. All right, welcome back to PlotLines. Today we have Margo McDonnell, the president and CEO of 1031 Corp. Margo, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so why don't we dive right in? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey to get to 1031 Corp, and a little bit more about the company.
Sure, I'd love to do that. As you said, I'm the president of 1031 Corp, and we're a 1031 exchange qualified intermediary with offices in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, and Central Oregon.
Okay.
1031 Corp assists real estate investors and business owners defer gain when exchanging a business use or investment property for another business use or investment property. It really works a lot like moving money around in your retirement account. If you have money in a fund that's not really performing well, you get to move that money out into a different fund. And because it's all within your retirement account, it is tax deferred. And a lot of people don't really look at how 1031 is actually the way for real estate investors to have that same opportunity.
Okay.
I've been with 1031 Corp for 31 of our 34 years.
Amazing. Wow.
Exactly. During that time, I not only have been involved in transactions of all size and complexity across the country with real property as well as personal property back when that was part of the tax code. So anything from, multi, couple $100 million property to a $50,000 piece of vacant land that someone has a huge gain on, or back in the day, exchanging cows and
Oh, no way. Oh, boy.
but things that you would not have thought about.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
real estate, of course, is what we do most of.
Okay.
And now that's all you can do.
Yeah.
During my years in the industry, I spent almost 20 years on the board of directors of our National Trade Association. And I've probably chaired just about every committee that there is. And I also spearheaded the industry's efforts to create and launch a certification and continuing education program.
Okay.
Because our industry is largely unregulated, we wanted investors like you or their professional advisors to have some way of evaluating qualified intermediaries. And those that hold that certified exchange specialist designation have to have 3 years of full-time experience in the industry. They have to pass a vigorous exam that is administered by a third party that assesses their knowledge of Section 1031 and its application. And then they have to do CE. And that's something that I'm really proud of and has done really well. Gosh, we're now, the program has been in place now for 22 years.
Wow.
And every time one of our team members gets that designation, I'm super proud of them because it's not easy. I know they stress out about the exam, but it's well worth it. And I always tell people the best thing you could do to prep for that is just go in and do your job every day.
Yeah.
Every transaction is different.
Yeah, that's interesting. And we're going to come back to the cows. I promise you that. But for now, our show, I think, as you know, is all about breaking down the headlines, reviewing the headlines, giving people sort of the boots on the ground view of what's really going on. So some of the things we're reading about lately are regulatory changes potentially, as well as investment strategy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's really going on in the 1031 exchange world and what people should understand?
Sure. Whenever you're part of the tax code, there's always a little bit of concern that in the stroke of a pen, you could be wiped out.
Yeah.
We weren't as concerned this time around. I can tell you before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that went into effect in 2017, we were very nervous about that.
Yeah. Okay.
But I guess starting in 15, we spent a lot of time educating members of Congress and their staff on the importance of 1031 to the economy.
Yeah.
And we weren't overly concerned that it was in play this time, but you never know when they're meeting in the evenings when everybody else is asleep.
Trading.
Right?
Yeah.
You never really know the deals that are happening.
Oh,
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
you're quick to anxiously look at what happened overnight.
Hmm.
But as far as just 1031s in general, I think investors are finally starting to realize how powerful 1031 exchanges are.
Yeah.
We're seeing taxpayers, mom and pop investors
Yeah.
doing multiple exchanges now.
Okay.
And they recognize that it's not just a way to defer the tax, but really a strategy to help them accomplish their long term investment goals.
Yeah.
And its use is really widespread across all sectors and with all types of investors and business owners. So it doesn't matter if you are that person that bought a piece of land in the Poconos
Mhm.
with the thought that eventually you would build a home on it, maybe it would be a rental,
Yeah.
and, life happens,
Yeah.
and you don't always get to do what you want. And you've
Right.
sat on that land and you paid your real estate taxes and it's done nothing for you, but
Yeah.
it has appreciated. So you could sell that and buy something that generates cash flow for
Yeah.
you.
Hmm.
If you're a business owner and you're thinking about your exit strategy and you're selling your business, if there's real estate attached to that, you can exchange that real estate for other real estate that will provide steady cash flow for you
Yeah.
during your retirement. You could even move into a more passive investment.
Okay.
So there's so many ways that 1031 can benefit investors and business owners. And the word is finally getting out.
Yeah. It seems like it. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
when I first started in this industry all those years ago, and I went to my first conference in
Mhm.
1995, I remember sitting next to someone from the West Coast.
Mhm.
And when he found out I was from Philadelphia, he said, "Oh, Margo, we tried to open an office in DC, and you guys on the East Coast have to work way too hard educating people on 1031." It was, one of those strategies that is much
Yeah.
more popular on the West
Yeah.
Coast and slowly
Okay.
made its way across the
Yeah.
country. But
Yeah.
now its use really is widespread
Widespread.
in
You-
all corners
Okay.
of the country.
I feel like we need like a more glamorous name than 1031, and it's like so many years in the making that it's crazy to me that nobody kind of came up with a moniker that was easier to
Well, the
digest.
funny thing, most people don't realize this. We all talk about, oh, it's been around since 1921, but
Uh-huh.
1031 hasn't actually been around. That code section didn't come around for many, many years.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
really like kind exchanges, and
Right.
they've always been called that. And if you go talk to an attorney, especially an accountant, I've had investors call me. They go to an investor seminar that I do on a Tuesday night and they call me on Wednesday morning and tell me, my accountant said I don't need to do a 1031 exchange. I need to do a like kind exchange.
It's the same
And,
thing.
of
Yeah.
course, I always tell them, hey, it's all the same thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
really,
Yeah. Oh my
really.
gosh.
But
Okay.
I agree. A fun name
Yeah.
could make things a little more interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess this is where the cows can come
All
back
right, yes.
into play,
Let's talk
Heather,
about the
since the cows
cows.
excited you. But you've been doing this a long time. So, from when you started to now, what has changed the most about how people use 1031s and in what ways?
I think that now, because uh, there um, there's so much more information about 1031 exchanges is readily available to them,
Right. Yep.
and they have the opportunity to do research on their own. And because there's so much information about it, and people are planning ahead,
Okay.
and it's allowing them a better chance of getting exactly what they want when they acquire that replacement
Okay.
property.
Okay.
And so we're seeing the actual time in exchange is open. We say exchange period, but during the time that the exchange is open is actually getting shorter and shorter each
Hmm.
year because investors are getting smarter
They're
and they
waiting
don't
for
want to
it.
give up their old property until they know they have something better to move into.
Okay. Yeah.
That makes sense. So they're being more, I guess, more proactive than reactive, like, oh, I'm selling
Yeah.
this. I need to find an exchange for, to
Yes.
so that I don't have to pay the taxes or whatever,
Exactly.
motivated
And
them.
And we see people come back 5 years later, 6 years
Mhm.
later. They didn't call us for eons. I was just sharing a story internally about a client that called who we hadn't heard from in 6, 7 years.
Uh-huh.
And the first thing he said to me when I got on the phone with him was, Margo, I have not been cheating on you. I just haven't done any 1031 exchanges. But it's not always the right thing for you to do. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
he had done a number of exchanges to buy properties in the Philadelphia area that would generate greater cash flow for him, swapping out some of his older properties for newer properties.
Okay.
And he took a little bit of a hiatus during the start and through the pandemic. And now he's finally getting back into it. And they just come back because they know how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
So the cows.
Oh, so in the old days, a pre-Tax Cut and Jobs Act, you
Uh-huh.
could exchange real property or
Any
real estate for
property.
real estate, or
Oh,
you could exchange personal property held for business use or investment purposes,
Okay.
like livestock, equipment, franchise agreements,
Wow.
liquor
Okay.
licenses, airplanes, farm equipment, and livestock is another
Okay.
one. But racehorses, baseball player contracts, but all
Wow.
oh
those fun
wow.
things
Wow.
went away with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I needed to know.
Yeah, no more exciting ones. One of my favorite exchanges was for a farmer in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And it was the first time that we were handling an exchange that involved a live auction. And we were trying to figure out how to get all the pieces in place to make sure it worked. And I went up there and I met with the farmer and the auctioneer and those that were helping him coordinate everything. And I'm a Philly girl, right? And like, Margo, come with me. This cow is giving birth right now. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not what I expected today.
Not the day on the
Not, yeah, that's
thought you were
not what I
Exactly.
was going for, but
Exactly.
okay. That's awesome. So I guess coming back to current times where we're using
Yes.
this for real estate only, what types of property, and I know it's changed a lot, what types of properties are you seeing most using 1031 exchanges now? And even if you want to compare that back, that's fine. But I'm just curious, like what's the current trend?
Sure. We in our company does a lot of exchanges, so we
Hmm.
really monitor trends and we look at residential versus commercial property. And of
Mhm.
course, over the last 5, 6 years, the balance of that has changed quite a bit because there was a time was not much commercial transactions happening.
Okay.
Okay.
And right, the end of 20, 21, 22,
Yeah.
it was almost all single family
I
residences. Like
never even
single
knew you
family,
could
not single
do a
residences,
1031
but
On
residential.
investments,
residential.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
So single
that's
family
interesting.
rentals. And a little known fact is across the country, not just a 1031 Corp, single family rentals is the most frequently exchanged type of property.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's mom and pop investors. So we had a couple of years where it was almost all single family rentals.
Okay.
And now we're seeing commercial properties come back. And
Okay.
there's big dollars being done in commercial
Yeah.
properties.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that is the investors who have properties that are running really well, generating good cash flow that they know they could sell for top dollar and they can go buy distressed properties
Yeah.
and
Multiple
really
probably. Yeah.
take advantage of the opportunities.
So for single family homes, it has to be a rental property, I assume, because
Yes.
it has you can only exchange investment property, right?
That is
Is that
great, and that's a
okay?
great
Okay.
point. So, a personal use property,
Mhm.
like a true I'm sorry, a true vacation home that's never been rented or your primary residence would not qualify for
Okay.
1031,
Okay. Okay.
but
That's the
you
distinction.
could get creative because there was a revenue procedure that came out in 2008 that really laid the groundwork for you to sell a property, let's say a duplex in Philadelphia
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
and exchange into a property in Brigantine, New Jersey.
Huh.
Use it as a
Okay.
rental for 2 years or longer, and then safely convert it to your personal use. And
Okay.
when you do that, you're not triggering the tax event at that point in time you still have all your deferred gain. And down the road, if you sell the property, that's when that tax would come due.
Got it.
But if
Okay.
you're a savvy investor that did that, you know it also works the other way.
Yeah.
So you could convert it back to a rental, satisfy the 2-year holding period outlined in that revenue procedure,
Interesting.
and
Right.
then exchange again.
Right.
So,
Noted.
Oh,
So if you're going to
and
buy a
that's
retirement
right.
home, rent it for a couple of years.
yeah, right.
Right. And that's one of the things that I noted earlier.
Yeah.
Investors are more educated now,
Yeah.
and they're starting to realize that 1031 is more than just deferring the tax. And they're
Uh-huh.
trying to figure out all the different ways they can use it to help grow their real estate portfolio with pre-tax dollars.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, really interesting. So we know that you've done advocacy work in DC to
Yeah.
try and
Mhm.
protect Section 1031. Tell us more about that and what threats you still feel like exist and the efforts that you're doing there. What would you want listeners to know?
Sure. There's always concern about changes to 1031.
Yeah.
Starting in 2015, we started to get very nervous about it.
Okay.
There was a bill that called for a full repeal in 2016 that was actually introduced.
Mm,
And that's when the 1031 industry, along with the real estate industry and a number of other industries that were involved in personal property back then, we all worked together um, to form an alliance and
Okay.
to work together. And we commissioned a microeconomic study that was completed by two academics, Milena Milena Petrova and Professor Ling, and it looked at 1.6 million transactions that over 20 years that were 1031 exchanges.
okay.
And they found that the use of 1031 was widespread in
Hmm.
all sectors,
Yeah.
right? And they also found that if 1031 was repealed or limited, because President Obama, in every year, almost every year he was in office, his budget proposed a cap on 1031. So they wanted to say if you were an investor, you could only defer $500,000 per year through 1031. For a
Okay.
married couple, they would each have that $500,000.
Okay.
But that would effectively wipe out 1031.
Yeah.
And these studies help show that if you limited or eliminated 1031,
Yeah.
that real estate transaction activity would decrease.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
you would create a lock-in effect because people exchange into these properties. Their
Right.
gain was pretty substantial, and then the GDP would contract.
Okay.
And we also commissioned a macroeconomic study by Ernst and Young,
Okay.
and they found that just a few years ago, 1031 exchanges supported 976,000 jobs a year
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
and contributed almost $50 billion of labor income and $98 billion to the US GDP.
Wow.
So if you say, hey, we're going to eliminate 1031, and
yeah.
the cost of that or the additional
Crazy.
revenue coming in
Yeah.
would be about $13 billion, well, we're still way in the hole.
Yeah.
So it's it's really beneficial for us to have all of that data when we are meeting with members of Congress and their staff to help them see how important 1031 is to their constituents, but
Yeah.
also to the real estate market, which drives the GDP.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's that's impressive. And I love that you're so like deeply rooted in the industry and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um
Yes, I think I've been doing Hill visits since 2004.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, good. I mean, I think the education is important, and I think
Yeah.
you mentioned also that
Absolutely.
people have a lot more access to information, and a lot more individuals are cognizant of what 1031s are now. Have
Right.
you seen like who are you seeing like I guess describe um the demographic that is you're seeing using 1031 exchanges now? Has
Mm.
that changed over time? Are you seeing more individuals as people are sort of more people are aware of the opportunity?
The most exchanges that we see, and we just did a look back on the last 5 years,
Mhm.
and it is still if you're looking at a pie chart, the biggest piece of the pie is still, it's married couples, individuals.
Okay. Hmm.
And then right behind that, you would find LLCs and partnerships. And we see a lot of trust, especially on the West Coast. Corporations, it's very small amounts, but most don't like to own real estate in corporations.
Okay.
But individual investors is probably the type of taxpayer that utilizes
Okay.
1031 the most.
Okay. That's
Right.
interesting. Yeah. Are there any misconceptions about 1031s that I'm sure there's many that you're constantly clearing up, but what's
Yes,
maybe one or two that you would want to
sure.
highlight?
Sure. I think that the biggest misconception comes from that word like kind exchange.
Uh-huh.
And people incorrectly assume that if I have a single family rental, I have to go buy another single family rental. I
Okay.
talked
Okay.
to an investor recently who had a storefront with two apartments above it.
Yeah.
And in one of the Philly suburbs, one of the cute little towns. And she told me that she wasn't sure that she would be able to do a 1031 exchange because she has looked high and low for another storefront with
Ah,
residential
something just
units.
like
And I said, no,
that.
no, no, no.
No.
It's really so much easier than that.
Oh,
And while people think that like kind makes it really restrictive, I actually think like kind is what makes 1031 so flexible
yeah.
because just about any kind of real property out there will qualify as long as you use it for business use or investment.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can sell residential and buy commercial, or sell commercial and buy residential.
Yeah.
You can sell one and buy 50. Or I had someone a couple years ago had acquired 146 single family rentals in Philadelphia, sold it as one package to one investor, and bought one replacement
Wow.
property.
Wow.
So,
That is interesting.
there's and it could be anywhere in the US. So it just gives
Okay.
people the opportunity to diversify, to consolidate, to buy something that's going to create greater cash flow, maybe
Uh-huh.
that future retirement home. And one of the things a lot of people don't realize is the gain is deferred as long as you own the property.
Yeah.
So if you own that property for 5 years and then you decide, hey, I want to trade up again, that worked out really well, you can
Yeah.
do another exchange. And there's no limit to the number of times you do an exchange. And if you do an outright sale down the road, that's when you would settle up with IRS and your state.
Okay.
But if you are holding on to those properties for the rest of your life, when you pass away, your heirs are going to acquire those properties as well as all your assets with a step up in basis, meaning they inherited at the fair market value at the time of death. And in 2025, the first $13.99 million dollars of someone's estate is exempt from federal estate taxes.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
1031 is a great way to build wealth, preserve your equity, and potentially pass it to the next generation without the federal tax. You'll still have some state tax in there,
Yeah.
but it's a really powerful wealth accumulation strategy.
Okay. So I want to back up for one
Okay.
second for our
Yes.
listeners. So, like kind, what needs to be like kind? Is it the price? Is it
The
the
use of the
gain? Is it
property. It is
okay?
the use of the property. So what makes two properties like kind is that they're held for business use or investment.
That's it.
That's
You could be
it.
exchanging a $1 million property for a $15 million
Well,
property.
yes, absolutely, trading
Okay.
up. So in order to maximize that deferral, there's a two-part requirement. You want to acquire something of equal or greater value, and you
Okay.
want to reinvest all the net equity.
Okay.
If you buy something for less value or less equity, you pay
You're
tax
gonna be
just on the
on
difference.
the increment.
And
Okay.
sometimes that makes a ton of sense even to trade down.
Sure. Okay. I thought that would be
No,
a
it's
helpful piece
interesting.
of information. We're learning a lot
So,
today.
yeah.
All right, Margot. Well, I think we're at that point now where we're going to circle back to the question we asked you in the beginning, which was
Okay.
for your take on current headlines in the space. And now we want to give you the opportunity to write what your ideal headline would look like for 1031 exchanges. What would you like to see out there?
You know, I am just someone that really believes in educating people on the
Hmm.
power of 1031 and helping them realize that it's a lot more than just deferring the
Yeah.
tax.
Hmm.
And we shared some of those strategies today.
Yep.
And I have people call me all the time. They
Hmm.
found out yesterday about a 1031 exchange and, they're going to closing tomorrow. And it doesn't give them a lot of time to plan.
Yeah.
But I am starting to see some people plan ahead, well in advance. It is important to note that once you close on your old property, there's no way to do a 1031 exchange. And in the last 10 days, I think I had 4 real estate professionals call me and say, "Hey, Margo, my client closed last Friday. Can I still do a 1031?"
Mm,
No, unfortunately, you can't.
Yeah.
But I think if I could create the narrative, it would really just be on how beneficial 1031 is. And don't just think about your transaction right now. Think
Hmm.
about your long-term real estate investment plan.
Yeah.
And how can 1031 be a way to get you there? It may not get you all the way from point A to point D. You might have to
Mhm.
do a point B and C in the middle,
yeah.
but
Right.
it is a way to help you get there. Okay.
Makes sense.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Margot. Well, we really enjoyed our conversation today. I think Heather and I learned a ton.
I
So
did.
thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts